welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to learn how to crochet the feather stitch. This tutorial is going to be 2 lessons in one. First, I'm going to teach you how to crochet the feather stitch in rows. So we'll be making a swatch much like this one. This method is good for anything that lays flat, like a scarf or a blanket. And you could even use it for some kitchen items such as trivets or pot holders, though I would double it up with another layer if you're going to be using it for anything hot. I will also teach you how to work the feather stitch in the round, which is perfect if you want to make anything tube shaped like a cowl or a hat. You can also use this for working into a sweater or even some nice little gloves. For this tutorial, you will need some number 4 worsted weight yarn. I'm using Lion Brand Heartland. This one is in color Olympic. You will also need a number 5, a 5mm hook. And you'll need a good pair of scissors. Okay, so to begin, you will make a slip knot. Slide that onto your hook. And we need an even number of chain stitches. So we're going to do 24. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oops. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Now, once you have your chain, you're going to half double crochet in the second chain from the hook. All right. Once you have that, you're going to chain 1, skip 1, and half double crochet in the next stitch. And you're going to repeat that all the way across. So we'll chain 1, skip 1 chain, and we're going to place a half double crochet into the next stitch. See that? And then again, chain 1, skip 1, and half double crochet in the next stitch. Okay, now I want you to repeat that all the way across until you've worked to the very last chain. Okay, now that is the base row for your feather stitch. We technically haven't started the feather stitch yet, but you're not going to be able to do the feather stitch without this base row. Now that that is finished, we're going to chain 1, we're going to turn and chain 1. Okay, now first thing we're going to do is place a half double crochet in the first stitch. And then we're going to chain 1. That counts as your first 2 stitches in this row. Now we're going to begin the feather stitch. The feather stitch is worked over 3 chain spaces or 3 stitches, depending on what you have here. So, first place we're going to work into is this chain space right here. this big old chain space. Then we're going to reach all the way down here and we're going to work into this chain stitch. Then we're going to skip this stitch and work into this chain space over here. And we're going to do that all with one stitch. So what you're going to do is yarn over, insert your hook into this first chain space, yarn over and draw up, oops, yarn over and draw up a loop. Now you want to bring this loop up so it's about the height of your half double crochet. You don't want it really tight like this. You want it up nice and high with your half double crochet. Now you're going to yarn over and you're going to insert your hook into this chain stitch down here, yarn over and pull up another loop. And again, you want to bring this loop up nice and high so it comes up to the same height as this loop and your half double crochet. Next, we're going to yarn over and we're going to insert our hook in the next chain space. You skip this half double crochet and you insert your hook into the next chain space, yarn over and pull up a loop, and again pull it up to the height of the rest of your loops and your half double crochet. Then you're going to yarn over and you're going to pull through all of your loops. You should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 loops here. So you're going to yarn over and pull through all 7 loops. You're almost done, but not quite. You're going to chain 1 and that closes your feather stitch. Okay, so we've done our first feather stitch. Now we're going to do our next one. When you begin your next feather stitch, you're going to start off in the same chain space that you just left off on. So you left off on this chain space, that's where you put the last loop of your feather stitch. So you're going to start off here. You're going to yarn over, insert your hook in the chain space, yarn over, pull up a loop. Yarn over, insert your hook in this chain stitch down here, yarn over, pull up another loop. Don't forget to make these loops nice and tall. Then you're going to skip your half double crochet, yarn over, insert your hook in the next chain space, yarn over and pull up another loop. Then you're going to yarn over, pull through all 7 loops. And then you're going to chain 1 to close. So now you've done 2 feather stitches. Good job. And now we're going to continue that way all the way across our swatch. Let me show you how to do this again. So, starting in the same chain 1 space that you just left off on, you're going to yarn over, insert your hook in the chain space, yarn over, pull up a loop. Make it nice and tall like your half doubles and like the rest of your feather stitches. You're going to yarn over, insert your hook into the chain 1, yarn over and pull up another loop. Then you're going to yarn over, skip 1 half double crochet, insert your hook into the chain 1, yarn over and pull up another loop. Then you're going to yarn over and pull through all 7 loops and then chain 1 to close. Okay, so now you know how to do this feather stitch. I want you to finish that until you'll get almost all the way across. I will show you when I get to the end. How about that? That's the easiest. So just keep going. You can keep working your feather stitch. Okay, you have feather stitched across your swatch, and you worked the last part of your last feather stitch into this last chain one space. And you have finished that feather stitch with a chain one. So now you're going to place a half double crochet into this last half double crochet. Now you have finished your first row of feather stitches. And now I'm going to show you how to work the next row. I'm going to turn and chain one. And you're going to begin with a half double crochet in the first stitch. And then you're going to chain one. Now, you're going to work this row of feather stitches the same way that you did the first one. The only thing is that your chain one spaces are a little bit different. They'll look a little different than they did with the first one. So this right here is your first chain one space. Down here is your second chain one space. And up here is your third chain one space. And you'll see if you just kind of give the row a little bit of a stretch, you can actually pick out these chain one stitches quite easily. So let's work our first feather stitch for this row. You'll yarn over, insert your hook in the first chain one space, pull up a loop, yarn over, insert your hook in the chain one space below that one, and pull up a loop. Then yarn over, skip the body of this feather stitch, insert your hook in the chain one space, pull up another loop. Then you'll yarn over and pull through all 7 and chain 1. You see how they come together there? Let's do another one. And remember, you're going to start off in the same chain 1 space where you finished your previous feather stitch. So yarn over, insert your hook in the chain 1 space, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, insert your hook in the chain 1 space below that, yarn over, pull up another loop, yarn over, insert your hook in the next chain 1 space, yarn over and pull up a loop, and yarn over, pull through all 7 and chain 1. See? It looks very complicated, but it's actually not that hard. So, beginning in the chain 1 space where you just left off, pull up 1 loop, down below, and the next one. Oh dear, I guess I'll have to do that again, won't I? So again, you're going to begin right where you left off with your previous feather stitch. Insert into this chain 1 space and pull up a loop, yarn over this chain 1 space and pull up another loop, yarn over, skip that feather stitch into the next chain 1 space and pull up another loop. Then yarn over and pull through all 7. That looks beautiful. Okay, now I want you to continue that way all the way across until your last feather stitch finishes in the last chain 1 space. now that you finished your last feather stitch in the last chain one space, you're going to half double crochet in this last stitch. Okay. And now you've done 2 rows of feather stitches. If you like, you can keep practicing. You can work 12 rows and you would end up with a nice, beautiful swatch. And I'll show you what that looks like next. And this is what your finished swatch will look like. As you can see, this stitch is very thick and squishy. It is a wonderfully warm stitch. And it has this beautiful texture to it. I absolutely love it. Okay, next, I'm going to show you how to work the feather stitch in the round. It is very similar to how you would work it in rows. The only difference I would say is that you don't start off with a half double crochet. You're going to start off right with the feather stitch. But in order to get there, we're going to have to make a big circle. So we're going to chain an even number once again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Okay, and then you're going to take this chain and you're going to slip stitch into the first chain to form a ring. Just like that. And now we'll have to create our base row, which again is a half double crochet, chain 1, skip 1, and repeat that around. So we'll start off by chaining 1. Then we're going to half double crochet in the first chain. Then we're going to chain 1. And we're going to skip the next chain stitch. Working into the next stitch, we're going to half double crochet. And then chain 1 and skip the next chain. And you're going to repeat that all the way around. Okay, we've gotten all the way around. You got 1 stitch left unworked, but that's supposed to be because you just chained 1, right? So then you're just going to join to your first half double crochet with a slip stitch. Okay, and then we're going to turn. And this is where we're going to start our first feather stitch. So you're going to begin by chaining 1. And you will work your feather stitch into the first chain space, into the stitch below that first chain space, and into the second chain space. So first, we're going to yarn over, insert your hook into this first chain space, yarn over, draw up a loop, make it nice and tall. You want it to be about the height of this chain 1. Then you're going to yarn over, insert your hook into the chain stitch below this chain 1 space, yarn over, and pull up another loop. Make sure you pull that one up to the same height as the other loop. Yarn over, skip this half double crochet, and insert your hook, into this chain one space, yarn over, and drop another loop. You should now have 7 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over and draw through all 7 loops, and then you're going to chain 1 to finish it off. And there is your first feather stitch. Now you will work your next feather stitch and all of your subsequent feather stitches the same way, but you will not start in the next chain 1 space. You will start in the one that you just finished off with. So you finished off with this chain 1 space, so that is where you'll begin your next one. So you'll yarn over, insert your hook into the same chain 1 space you just worked, yarn over, and draw up a loop. Make sure it's good and tall. Yarn over, insert your hook into the chain stitch below that chain 1 space, yarn over, draw up another loop. And again, don't forget to make it nice and tall. Yarn over, skip this half double crochet, insert your hook into the next chain 1 space, yarn over, and draw up another loop. 7 loops on your hook, yarn over, and draw through all 7 loops. And then chain 1 to finish it off. Let's do that one more time. We're going to yarn over, insert your hook into the same chain 1 space you just worked, yarn over, draw up a loop. Bring it up to the height of the other stitches. Yarn over, insert your hook into the chain stitch below the chain 1 space you just worked, yarn over, draw up another loop. Don't forget to make it nice and tall. Yarn over, skip this half double crochet and insert your hook into the next chain 1 space. Yarn over and draw up a loop. Now that you have 7 loops on your hook and they're all nice and tall, you're going to yarn over and draw through all 7 and then chain 1. So now you have 3 feather stitches worked. You're going to work in that same manner all the way around until you have worked your last feather stitch into this and finished it in the last chain 1 space. And then I'm going to show you how to finish off this round. Okay. Okay, so now we've made it almost all the way around. You can see that you've finished your last feather stitch into this last chain 1 space, but there's still a gap there. We still have 1 more feather stitch to do. This last one is going to fall into this chain 1 space, this chain stitch underneath that chain 1 space, and into the chain 1 space that you've started your first feather stitch on. You see how that works? So we're going to put our first loop into this chain 1 space that you worked before. Then you're going to put your second loop into the stitch underneath that chain 1 space. And then if you look over here and you just give it a little tug, you can see that's the first chain 1 space that you worked in for your first feather stitch. So you will put your last loop into there. And it looks a little bit funny, but once you yarn over and finish it off, it looks like a nice continuous round. And then you will slip stitch to join into the first feather stitch. Make sure that you're joining into the body of your feather stitch and not into the chain 1. Right there. Okay. And now we can turn, and I will show you how to do your next round of feather stitches. So you'll chain 1. And again, if you just give it a little tug here, you'll see where your chain 1 spaces lie. So you'll see that your first chain 1 space is right there, just after your slip stitch here. And then the one underneath that lies here, and it's where that branch of your feather stitch was worked. And then you'll skip the feather stitch and you'll work into this chain 1 space. I'm going to show you how to do this, okay? So we're going to yarn over. You're going to insert your hook into this first chain 1 space, yarn over, and draw up a loop. Remember to get it nice and tall. You want it to be the height of your chain 1. Then down here is where you're going to work your next loop. So you're going to yarn over, insert your hook into the chain 1 space underneath the chain 1 space you just worked, yarn over, and draw up a loop. Okay, then you're going to skip the body of this feather stitch. You're going to work your next loop into this chain 1 space. Yarn over, insert your hook into that chain 1 space, draw up another loop. Then you will yarn over and draw through all 7 and chain 1 to finish. You see how that looks? Nice. Okay, so again, just give this a nice little tug and you can see where your chain 1 spaces are. So you'll be starting off in the same chain 1 space that you just left off on. Yarn over, insert your hook into that same chain 1 space, draw up a loop. Yarn over, insert your hook into the chain space underneath that chain 1 space, yarn over and draw up another loop. Skip the body of this feather stitch, yarn over, insert your hook into the next chain 1 space, and draw up another loop. Then yarn over and draw through all 7 and chain 1. You can see that the feather stitch is starting to take shape here. So I want you to continue like that all the way around, again, until you have worked into this last chain 1 space, and then I will show you how to finish it off.
Calico.
Okay, so you've worked almost all the way around. This is your first stitch here. You worked into that last chain 1 space, and this will be very similar to the previous row. You're going to work you're going to work your last feather stitch into this chain 1 space, this chain 1 space below that one, and then you're going to work into the first chain 1 space that you worked at the beginning of this round. And if you just give it a little stretch, you can see it's just over here. So first loop goes about here. Second loop goes in the stitch underneath. Third loop, you're going to reach all the way over here and insert that into the first chain 1 space that you worked at the beginning of the round. And then yarn over and pull through all 7 and chain 1 to close. And you'll see that that makes an almost seamless join here. You really can't tell that this is where your seam is. And you'll slip stitch to the first stitch that you worked for this round. So this is how I work the feather stitch in the round. If you want to keep practicing, you can go right ahead, And just keep on building rows onto this one. I'll show you what that looks like next. And here you are. I ended up stopping after 5 rows because, take a look at this. Does that not make just the cutest little wrister? I quite like it. The texture on this stitch is just amazing. And I think this is super nice and comfy. And that is my feather stitch tutorial. Now you know how to do this stitch in rows and in the round. If you take a look at my blog and my Ravelry store, I'll bet you'll find a few patterns that feature this stitch. And if you liked this tutorial, please remember to like the video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And until next time, happy hooking!